You guys are all smiley.
We just are happy to see you, sir.
I wonder what you said prior to coming out. Well, almost good afternoon. So yesterday in the Speaker's press conference, she made some remarkable statements. She said, Democrats have done a great job. We must take great pride in what we have done. We've got a lot to brag about. I just think they're so out of touch, even from that statement itself. A recent poll showed that the American consumer sentiment has shrunk for the 5th time in the past 6 months. That's nearly an 11-year low of all the great things they have done. And for good reason. Whether you're at the pump, the supermarket, or virtually everywhere else Americans are spending money, they are paying the highest prices in living memory. And inflation, which is a tax on every single American, shows no signs of stopping. Now, just this week, the Federal Reserve Chair, Mr. Powell, said he expects inflation to stay high for months. You know, by the end of 2 years of President Biden's presidency, families will be losing more than $6,000 in buying power because of inflation. That's over 2 years. This was not only predictable, it was predicted. Last year, House Republicans, we warned reckless government spending would lead to higher prices. It wasn't just Republicans who warned them. Former Democrats in the administration warned them as well. We warned anti-energy policies would lead to higher gas prices. Democrats have responded with excuses and finger-pointing and unserious solutions, as you can see from the chart. Remember when they first blamed COVID for it? Then they said the inflation was transitory. Remember that? And now it's Putin's fault. You know, I just filled out my bracket for the NCAA. We should fill out a bracket to see who do they blame next. Now they want to blame the oil companies. You know, Americans aren't buying these excuses, but unfortunately they are paying for them. This incompetence extends beyond failures on the economy. Look at the horrible situation on our southern border. And this is something you really need to focus on. The thousands upon thousands of people who are entering here illegally, not being tested, and the amount of drugs. Just last week, you read the headlines of some kids ODing in Florida on spring break. They bought a drug that was laced with fentanyl. You read the number of the kids who have OD'd. 2 of them who didn't take the drug. They were giving CPR to those who went and took it. But the fentanyl was so great, they were ODing as well. The number 1 cause of death in America today between the ages of 18 and 45 is fentanyl. Where do we get it? It comes from China through the Mexican border. We're watching what's happening on the news at the border. You would think it was video from Ukraine. These cartels, the shootouts, the trucks on fire. And what's the response from the administration? Not to secure the border. You've gone 12 consecutive months with more than 150,000 encounters. They'll no longer tell you how many people they're catching who are on the terrorist watch list. Now the proposal is to end Title 42. This is going to cause a gigantic influx, even greater than we've already seen. There's no plan by this administration. And the Democrats continue to block us at every opportunity to secure this border. But another thing we should look at that just came forward, the Democrats have politicized our Intelligence Committee. You've watched it year after year since Adam Schiff has become chair. No, he doesn't warn us about Ukraine or Afghanistan or what's happening around the world. He tells you about politics. But the worst part of it is you cannot trust what he tells you, that he lies to us. Just watch what has happened. 2 years ago, Schiff stated the emails found from Hunter Biden were whole smear on Joe Biden comes from the Kremlin. That's what the head of the intel said. But if you recall, Jonathan Turley has an article written, I believe, in October 2020, after Schiff said this to the American public. And remember, the election's in November. But the director of national intelligence, John Radcliffe, said no, that's not the case. That there is no intelligence out there to base it upon what Adam Schiff, as the chair of the Intel Committee, was telling the country. And what did we just find out yesterday from the New York Times? Yes, it is Joe Biden's laptop. And yes, Adam Schiff lied to us one more time. Why is he still chair of the committee? And why is he even on the committee? In a new Congress, if it's a new majority, he will not be. You cannot make this committee political. You cannot use it as a position of a chairman to lie. And you should be focused on what the American people want you to be focused on around the world. How did you miss Afghanistan collapsing? How did you miss Ukraine? How have you missed every single part? Why? Because you're out lying about an impeachment and everything else. That's not your job. That's not your role. And we should be able to trust the chair of the Intel Committee to be honest with the American public, regardless of what political realm is in. With that, I'll take questions. How are you feeling?
Feeling okay. Thank you very much.
You want to join the pool? Who do you think they blame next?
I don't know. You tell me.
It'll be someone. All right, go ahead.
Thanks. One of your colleagues, Madison Cawthorn, called Zelensky a thug. He also suggested they're pushing disinformation. Have you spoken to him, and
Yes.
do you support his reelection?
Madison is wrong. If there's any thug in this world, it's Putin. You just watched Putin with Russia, directing Russia bomb a maternity ward. We watched yesterday in a theater that's identified in the front and the back from the air that you're housing children. Bomb. This is atrocious. This is wrong. This is the aggressor. This is the one that needs to end this war. This is the one that everybody should unite against.
You support his reelection?
Yes.
So you mentioned Democrats are now blaming oil companies for the rise in gas prices. The chair of the Energy and Commerce Committee has wrote letters to Exxon, Chevron, BP, and several other oil gas executives. Their argument is that that the price of oil, the barrel price, has gone down below $100, but gas prices remain over $4 a gallon nationally. Do you believe there's any merit to that argument that oil companies are not giving the breaks to consumers?
It just begins to go to show how they don't understand the industry. Things don't change overnight. You've got to produce the oil, you sell the oil, you have to refine the oil, and you pass it through. When the Democrats proposed, you first had the Democrats who led the party, Joe Biden, in his campaign for president, said he would eliminate the production of crude. You then had on the very first day when he got into office, ending a pipeline. So you add transportation to that. And when inflation goes up, if you can't move it by a pipeline, you got to put it in a truck, or you got to put it in a tanker if you bring it from somewhere else. That costs a lot more. You can't get things off the port, so they raised the price themselves. Secondly, when they called in all the CEOs, you know what their number one question was? Will they pledge to produce less? So if they took the advice of why they were called in, why they had to swear in under oath, and the questioning from the majority party, will you promise to produce less like Europe? And where is Europe today? So now they want to turn around and blame them? When you shut in a well, you can't turn it right back on. It's not a light switch. When you go after and you hold a permit because you're building an LNG export plant, you're not going to go produce more, make the investment in until you have the ability to send it out. Well, they're sitting on them. There's no reason why. When you go after not a committee that you would think is an energy committee, but a financial services committee, and you ask the financial markets, will you pledge not to loan money to the energy industry, then you don't have the capital. But what does the majority party turn around? Well, these leases are not being moved. You understand the market? You get a lease, it takes you 3 to 7 years to develop it. And there's no guarantee there's oil or gas underneath it. But then you go to your banker to try to get the capital to go, but the majority committee is going after your capital not to loan you the money. I've never seen anything like this. They made their platform to put oil industry out of business in America and increase the business of Russia, Iran, and Venezuela. They have sent letters, the Democrat Party, Schumer, the president, and begged OPEC to produce more. They have sent the oil out of the spur, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. American oil they sent out, but they never turned around and asked the American companies to produce more and produce more jobs. If the premise of what they care most about is the environment, they should embrace the American companies. American natural gas is 41% cleaner than Russian natural gas. It's their entire party that's been doing it. I live in California. I come from a district that should be very proud about the energy we produce. We're 1 or 2 in solar. We're in the top 4 in wind. We're number 1 in California when it comes to oil. We have hydro. We have all the above, what America would want. But when Gavin Newsom came into office, he's used his executive orders to shut down the ability to lease. And the one thing you have to understand, if you understand the industry, every day that you're pumping, you're depleting. So you have to do something to discover more. That takes investment. But they go after the capital where you can. You have to do something to get the core open. You either steam it, you frack it, but they've gone after those companies where you can't frack or others to try to put you out. We produce 89,000 barrels a day in California less because of Gavin Newsom, 20% decline. But you know who gained in all that? Because you still provided the oil, Putin. We now increased, you get 50,000 barrels a day from Russia instead of an American job with cleaner energy done in a more environmentally sound way because of policies of Democrats. And they turn around and see the price is high. We have warned them about this time and again based upon their policies. Last week I showed you the video where for every day Biden has been in office and every time he took an action that was going to harm the energy industry, we showed you the prediction of what would happen. Well, that day has come, and I'm sorry, they're out of excuses. Every action they've taken has put us in this place. Yes, sir.
So they had to pull their COVID relief from the omnibus last week.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think?
Brilliant move on their part.
Do you think that that you need more COVID? I mean, what's your view right now?
Look, there's certain things you need to deal with COVID, and the unique part is there's plenty of money already out there that has already been appropriated, more than $300 billion. You don't need $300 billion worth of new COVID items. They even admit that. The money's already appropriated and hasn't been spent. That's where they should use it. The challenge is their progressives and their socialists in the party only want to spend more. So they've created this problem themselves, and they created an issue that they're going to have a hard time solving.
Last question.
Leader McCarthy, Republicans are about to head down to Florida. Last year, you stood on a stage and said Republicans were more united than ever, and then the whole fallout with Cheney just started to happen during that retreat. What are we going to see this year?
You won't see any fallout now. Yeah.
Following up on Manu's question, beyond Cawthorn.
What was his question again?
His question was about Madison Cawthorn calling Zelensky a thug, but 8 of your members voted against trade sanctions yesterday, 15 voted against oil sanctions last week. One of your members put out a Twitter thread on what she referred to as NATO Nazis. Are you worried that a small group of vocal right-wing members with very large platforms are going to cloud the GOP's otherwise overwhelming support for Ukraine?
No. Next question. Yeah.
I also had a question about the 8 Republicans, but more about the substance of what they were talking about. All of them said they were concerned about a provision in the Magnitsky sanctions portion of the bill.
Yeah.
That would allow the president to...
Did anybody report it that way?
Huh?
Did anybody report it that way?
Yeah, I think everyone did. Everyone did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
His question didn't line that way. He didn't even ask about this.
Well, they were concerned about the Magnitsky's sanctions portion. They thought that it would allow the president to sanction any foreign person deemed complicit in human rights abuses. Congresswoman Boebert said that she was worried Biden would sanction people who simply hold traditional views of life and family and don't like abortion. I mean, what do you make of those concerns? Do you share them at all?
I felt better protected in how the bill went. They had a legitimate argument that they made, so it wasn't about Russia. It was about what would be gone on a whole nother issue. So I think the reporting in it should be a little clearer. Yes, sir.
Congressman Fortenberry, since his trial started.
I haven't. He's been in California. I've been here.
Have you been following the developments of it, or?
I saw an article earlier in the day. You going to brief me on it? Oh, okay. Sorry. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
Looking ahead to the retreat in Florida next week, given that the
Are you
former
coming?
president, I am.
All right.
Given that the former president lives less than 300 miles from where this event is going to take place, what are the chances we see or hear from him?
We'll see him in Dallas. He's going to do an event for us there. Look, this retreat, for those who go down, thank you for coming. Hopefully you have a good time. Really focus just on our policies. As many of you remember, last year, we put all of our members into different task forces, going out to the public, listening, bringing in different experts, walking through, and we've been narrowing. You saw some of our policy gets rolled out, like the Parents' Bill of Rights, the securing of our border. Our members have been not just working through those task forces, we've been doing conferences every single week where everybody's invited based upon a different topic, from making America energy independent, Garrett Graves' committee as well. We're going to narrow those down, so it's real a focus mainly, if you look at our agenda, members' interaction together. Unfortunately, in the Democratic caucus, the majority caucus, I listened to their conference chair say the other day, it's very interesting, that gas prices have never come up in their conference. I don't know what they're talking about. I know they have some interesting entertainment at their retreat. Our retreat is going to be focused on policy, not entertainment. So thank you all. I hope you enjoy the retreat.